Welcome to the Colts Squad Show. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. And why does it feel like the Colts haven't played in a month?
And I'm Zach Hicks, and I am more than ready for Colts football to be back this Sunday.
I'm Alan Pinkett, former Houston Oiler, and the Colts say it's just another game, but do you think this is a statement game?
Colts Nation, rise up. It's the Colts Squad. Everything Indianapolis Colts every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Circle City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to squad up. The Colts Squad Show starts now.
Welcome in, everydayers, and happy Wednesday. It's the Colts Squad Show. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I'm Derek Schultz, Indy Sports Talker and columnist for the Indianapolis Business Journal. I'm joined by the man who left Notre Dame as its all-time leading rusher and had a great pro career as an Oiler, and Alan Pinkett. And you everydayers know, of course, your favorite film buff, Zach Hicks. One half of the dynamic duo from Locked On Colts. Jake has dad duty tonight. And I have a feeling that we're going to be getting into dad duty here a little bit more because I know the Arthur family is expecting a new edition any day now. So we'll have Jake return coming up on Sunday following the game against the Chiefs. Finally, we have Colts football again to talk about. So on tonight's squad show, we'll discuss a potential, just what Alan said, a statement game in Kansas City and whether it is a statement game. You know, I've seen some Colts fans get defensive about, do we really need to prove ourselves again after winning 8 of the first 10 games? We'll talk about that in the opening segment. The power shift in the AFC. We've seen the Chiefs really struggle this year. The Ravens dealing with injuries. The Bills, it just kind of depends on what day you catch them, right? And you've got the Patriots coming on, the Broncos coming on, the Colts coming on. We'll discuss that in segment 2. We'll play overreactions and underreactions from week 11 in the NFL, and then we'll take our first look at the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending AFC South champions. And guys, I honestly, I've gotten wiser in my old age, and also I just don't have time for it anymore. I really don't read too much into what the national folks are saying about the Colts anymore. Certainly not as much as I did when I was like 25 years old. I found that if you do, you end up just being angry all the time. And then you're getting into back and forth on social media with strangers. And you're like, why did I just spend 90 minutes doing this with, Alan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? That said, I think it's easy to see that the Colts still have plenty of detractors out there. I don't think you need to go digging around to find some of the critics. I know this isn't a vintage Chiefs team, Zach, but would a win in KC convert some of those remaining holdouts? And is that important?
I think it will, but I think if anybody has gripes against the team, you can always find an excuse. If they beat Kansas City, they beat a 5-6 Kansas City Chiefs team. This is clearly not, your typical Chiefs team. So you'll always find some way to work your narrative into the process. And that's a big part of TV football analysis, right? Is you have to be the hot take, you have to be loud, you have to be confident, and you have to find every way to constantly fight for your previously held opinion. This Colts team's good. We know that it doesn't going to change anything this weekend, win or lose against Kansas City, because we know what kind of team we have here. But when you play against a team like the Chiefs with the pedigree that they have, they've been to a Super Bowl almost every year that Pat Mahomes has been the quarterback there. They've been to the AFC Championship. I think they've been to the AFC Championship every single year with him at quarterback. It's a level of success that outside of Tom Brady, we just haven't really seen from the quarterback position. A Hall of Fame coach, a Hall of Fame tight end, Hall of Fame defensive tackle. They are a very good football team, regardless of what the record says. And Arrowhead is one of the toughest places to play in the league. It's a loud stadium. It's a stadium, again, filled with fans that know championships and know wins at this point. So, I do think this is a big measuring stick game for a team like the Colts, regardless of what the record is that the Chiefs have. Anytime you get a chance to go against a future Hall of Fame quarterback in his home stadium, it's going to be a tough showing. It's going to be a tough game. So I don't really care too much what the national perspective is or the thoughts are on the Colts, regardless, because you're going to find ways to detract against them, regardless if they win or lose. But I just think internally for the Colts, this is one of those games where this is going to be a playoff environment on Sunday. This is going to be a playoff caliber game for these two teams. And if you're the Colts, you want to show to yourself that you're for real. Come out here and beat a team like the Chiefs, who they have won Super Bowls. They've been to Super Bowls. Beat them, and you can feel a lot better about yourself in this final stretch as you push for your playoff run.
Well, I got a lot of respect for the Chiefs because anytime you can play in the postseason, that's more exposure in terms of getting injured. It's also an opportunity for other teams to scout the hell out of you. And when you go to the Super Bowl, every player knows that that's the team to beat. They're going to mark it on their schedule saying, if I'm going to have a good game, it's going to be against that squad that played in the Super Bowl, because there's just too many other opportunities that can come from beating a team that has played in a Super Bowl. And I think Kansas City, the reason I respect them is because they understand that they're going to get teams' best shot week in and week out, but that's what they want. They want to be able to play competitive football at the highest level. And I think the Colts, those players are circling that game also, because it has been life under the radar thus far. But who cares? All you got to do is drop 40 on another opponent, go on about your business, still stay under the radar. Drop another 40, another week goes by. So that you've got the capability of beating a wounded Chiefs team, but you don't look at them as wounded. You look at them as, former Super Bowl champs. And, it's like a shark seeing blood in the water right now, because a lot of teams have put on film and exposed how you beat the Chiefs. So you got to follow that game plan. And, it's one of those, when the dog is down, what do? You kick them. So it's an opportunity for the Colts to, number one, make their mark. And I think it is a statement game for them, because I think there are some games that you play in the season where, as a team, you want to send a message to the rest of the league that, hey, we're coming. And not only we're coming, we're here. So strap it up.
Yeah, no, for sure. This Chiefs team too, and we'll talk about more in the final segment, I think they're a bit better than what their record says. Last year, they were probably worse than what their record said during the season, because they had, 12 one-score victories, I think, last year, and their route to the number one seed in the AFC. This year, they're sitting at 5-5. Yes, they are a 5-5 team, but I believe every loss has been by one score. They're 0-5 in one-score games. In their 5 wins, they have an average margin of victory of 20 in those games. Like, they are a good football team. They've had a little bit of bad luck in the one-score games. So while, again, just on paper, going against a Chiefs team with Mahomes at quarterback is going to be a big game for your team, but I do think this is also a closer bout than a lot of people are expecting. This Chiefs team is vulnerable, but they're still the Chiefs. They're still the Kansas City Chiefs. Honestly, this is the best their offense has been since the Mahomes MVP season. This is the best success they've had on offense in a long time. They just had a couple things go against them in a lot of these pivotal games. And getting home after 2 straight road losses, they're going to be hungry, they're going to be physical, and they're going to be ready to go. And I think the biggest thing for the Colts in this game is match their desperation. The Chiefs are going to come out as desperate as possible. They're going to be fighting for every inch. If you're the Colts, you have to feel like your playoff lives are on the line as well in this game. If you want to be able to beat a team like the Chiefs that have that championship DNA, you have to come out here, throw the same punches as them, and exchange blows, and get through and play your best football.
You said the right thing right there. Championship DNA. That's what they have. And that's a thing where, how do you separate yourself from other teams? Kansas City has championship DNA because they're comfortable in those situations where it gets tight, and they know how to win. They don't panic, and the moment's not too big. And so it takes a while for other teams to develop that type of DNA, but once you eclipse or climb that mountain and you find it, then you'll be hard to beat. And that's why Kansas City is still looked at by most of the league as, even if they come in as a wild card, they got a shot to play another Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you hear the whole, well, it's just another game thing. And, that sounds fine. But from a player perspective, Alan, do you throw that out the window against teams like Kansas City? I always think back to the old NBA days where, for a while it was the Pistons were trying to get past the Celtics, right? And then they finally did. And then it was the Bulls and Jordan. They were trying to get past the Pistons, and they finally did. And there was kind of this cycle of, like, you don't really get to the throne until you knock who's sitting off the throne. And I know this is a regular season game in November and not, January in the snow or something like that. But still, to go there and win, I think it would raise some eyebrows. And certainly it would have to fuel that locker room, I would think, privately, even if they don't want to come out and say it.
It is playoff rehearsal. It is, because the stadium is going to be identical. And here's the thing that happens in the playoffs. The speed of the game is the big thing in the NFL, and there's a certain speed in preseason, and then it amps up in the regular season, and then it amps up more in the playoffs. So this game is going to have the feeling of a playoff because Kansas City's going to bring it like it's a playoff game. And so, like Zach said, you got to match that type of energy. Well, this is great rehearsal for when you get in the playoffs, because teams are going to bring a little bit extra. But it really doesn't matter what they bring if you do your job, so it's a level of execution that you got to step up your game just a little bit more. And why wouldn't you do it against the Chiefs? Because they've shown you that they know how to get to the Super Bowl. So you still got to go through Kansas City.
Yeah, no, and I think that's such a big thing for this game too, is the Colts being at 8-2 is a blessing at this point in the year, because it's not like playoffs are locked up right now, but you're on the doorstep of the playoffs. Now you get, 4 divisional games. You get a game against the Chiefs. You get a game against the 49ers, a game against the Seahawks. A lot of playoff caliber environments the rest of the way. The Colts get a really good just dress rehearsal for the playoffs. Come out here, win a couple of these games, get in the playoffs, and then you're kind of a battle-tested team. And I think that's vital for a Colts team that hasn't been to the playoffs since, 2020? I believe a lot of these guys haven't been to the playoffs since 2020. Getting a lot of games like this down the stretch is a way to get battle tested, a way to get ready for that environment. You're going to meet a lot of desperation the rest of the way. The Colts, again, they have to get down to that same level of desperation, treat every game like it's the most important game of the season, and exchange some punches with these top teams. You're not going to win all of them, but your goal here the rest of the way, obviously, is to win as much as possible and showcase that you are ready for these. We know this Colts team has been great in the regular season. They've been great at home, but can you win on the road in Kansas City, regardless of if it's a regular season game? That's going to be the test if they're a true contender this year. And I'm excited to see how they come out in this game. It's not one of those games where it's like a must win or else for them, but you want to come away with this victory. You want to show that you're ready for this moment and respond to the big question in front of you here.
Yeah, it's one of those weird. Sorry, go ahead, Alan.
I look at their game against the Rams. They didn't back down from the Rams, and the Rams have proven to be one of the better teams in the NFL. And if not for a couple of things with Mr. Mitchell that happened in that game, they probably would have won. So they've got a blueprint that shows that as long as we don't beat ourselves, we're going to have a chance to win. Now, the Steeler game, they totally beat themselves. Remember, 3 turnovers, you should lose. 4, you're going to lose. Well, why don't we just have 6 and make sure we lose? So you're going to have some of those games. But they've got all the ability in the world, and the game plan, and the mental psyche, and the execution level to go in and handle their business.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird games where it's excuse me, to Zach's point, it wouldn't be catastrophic if they lost, right? Everything is still in front of them. They put themselves in a position where it's certainly not the game as important to them as it is to Kansas City to win at home. But it would just feel like a missed opportunity for vibes more than anything else. Like, just what it would mean to go to Kansas City and win like that coming off of the bye, and then, really put themselves in the catbird seat as far as the division is concerned, especially by grabbing another road win and starting this murderous home stretch with a big victory. The Chiefs are flailing, as we've been talking about, and really desperate right now. The Ravens are trying to climb back frantically from the early hole that they dug for themselves, and you never know which Bills team you're going to get. Are we seeing a power shift at the top of the AFC? We'll discuss when the Squad Show returns next.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back. It's the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us on this Wednesday night alongside former NFLer Alan Pinkett and Locked On Colts co-host Zach Hicks. I'm Derek Schultz. Really appreciate you being here. We talked about the power shift here in the AFC, and, for a while, the narrative was the stranglehold that the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bills, and you could even throw the Bengals in there as well with a healthy Joe Burrow, we're going to have in this conference going forward, right? 4 elite level MVP contending level quarterbacks. And that grip has really loosened this year. Now, some of that are circumstances beyond the team's control. Obviously, what happened to Joe Burrow, and then early this season, the Ravens having to overcome Jackson, but the Chiefs having that close game variance start to kind of go against them, and the Bills kind of doing this like Jekyll and Hyde thing. I can't really understand what's been going on with the Bills. But you look at the way that the AFC is structured right now, guys, it appears that with this closing schedule, the Patriots are probably going to walk to a division championship and be no lower than like the 2 seed. Broncos have an excellent defense and are red hot and really have put themselves in an advantageous position because of winning again against Kansas City. I think it's pretty unlikely that the Colts would fall below the 3 if they won the AFC South. So you're talking about the highest seed available to those 4 teams that I just listed being the number 4. And really the Bengals are pretty much off the map. So we're really only talking about those other 3 teams and the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bills. And that 4 seed would be for the Ravens in the AFC North. And then, the Chiefs and the Bills trying to gather a wild card. I know, Zach, that it ultimately doesn't mean much. We're not thinking about division championships, right, when we're in the divisional weekend, because wild card teams make runs and do that all the time. But I don't know if we're seeing a long-term power shift here because those quarterbacks are eventually going to be back and be healthy. And I think those teams all are going to have staying power. But are we at least seeing a couple of teams crash the party, for lack of a better term, and the window swing open in terms of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, success in the NFL is not always something that's a given. It's not guaranteed to have success year after year. It's actually quite rare to have what's going on with the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship game every single year and in the Super Bowl seemingly every single year as well. That's very rare in the history of football. We don't see many teams that do that. That's why we throw that D word around a lot with them. The dynasty word gets thrown around. Even when they lose a couple Super Bowls, you still throw the word dynasty out there because even getting to a couple is insane. Like Mahomes already been to more Super Bowls than Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning's arguably a top 2 to 3 quarterback in the history of the game. So it's not a guarantee that you're going to have success in the NFL. And that's why I think, like, you see a team like the Colts making that move for Sauce Gardner, where we're an 8-2 team. And it's one of those few times where the AFC feels vulnerable. We have to go for it, because who knows what this looks like next year? Who knows what this looks like in 2027? Who knows what this looks like in 2028? There could be a new young quarterback. Look what Drake May has done this year. Like, when we were talking about the quarterbacks in the AFC that are so hard to go through, how many people were putting Drake May as one of them up there at the top of the list? How many were putting Daniel Jones as one of them that you had to go through? Bo Nix and the Broncos, So things change so much from year to year. The example I always throw out there is look at the Commanders' trajectory last year when they were a 12-5 team that went to the NFC Championship game with a rookie quarterback. The trajectory was flying high. They made these win-now moves. Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil coming in there. And what's the result? 3-8, oldest roster in football, ton of one-year deals. Who knows what their future looks like? And that's just the state of the NFL. You don't know what's going to happen from year to year. So when you get rare opportunities like this, where you have a chance to get some home field in the playoffs, and that's the best thing you can hope for, get some home field against some of these top tier quarterback teams, you got to make the most of it, and you got to win these games and take your shot at the Super Bowl, because you don't know if you'll ever be back. So I don't know if it's changing long term. The one thing that we can say about the history of football is the most consistent thing from year to year in terms of success is having a top flight quarterback. That is almost something that's going to guarantee you being one of the best teams in football. Nothing else is guaranteed. So like the Broncos, they're thriving off the play of their top tier defense. That's pretty regressible from a year to year standpoint. The Colts are having good play from Daniel Jones, but they're having a historically great running back season. That's probably not going to happen again after this year, because that's not something we typically see year to year. So when you're a team like the Colts or the Broncos, who are kind of not doing this with a Pat Mahomes at quarterback, you got to take advantage of your opportunities and really go for it. So the time is now for those two teams. Get that home field advantage in the playoffs. Both those teams are also undefeated at home this year, I believe, the Broncos and the Colts. So they want to get as much home games as possible in the playoffs, and take your chance at winning Super Bowl this year while you have it.
Well, a power shift is exactly what the people that run the NFL want. In fact, what happens is, you think about it. If you have a bad season, you get a higher draft pick, you get a better player. Your schedule, it's not necessarily soft, but it's built in a way where you're going to play more teams with records similar to yours than, the records of folks that had great seasons. So they're always trying to have this type of parity arrangement because it builds so much fan interest. You don't want to, and you can go from, worst to first in a year because of the way that the league is structured. I would have to say, having said all that, the team that has probably impressed me the most has been New England, because Vrabel at coach, that is a big deal. But the play from Drake May and his supporting cast, you can put together a team, where you get a coach that's got a good reputation and you can get lucky on a few players. But the thing I see happening in New England is similar to the thing I'm seeing happen with the Colts. And that is, they've established a culture of a brotherhood where they're playing for something bigger than themselves. And, the whole team has bought in under Coach Vrabel. It appears the whole team has bought in under Steichen. They can sort of see the prize, and they know that if they, all toe the line, they can all eat. This isn't like Philly, where you win and you still got people complaining. So to have that camaraderie and that cohesiveness is, probably the main reason, aside from having talent, that they are winning and will continue to win. And I think New England has just been the best example of how they've created this culture of winning. But the Colts aren't far behind, and if you talk to all the players, how many players have complained? We haven't heard, Alec Pierce complain about only getting thrown 3 or 4 times a game when he's one of the top yards per catch receivers in the league. You listen to Jonathan Taylor, and he's carried the ball much, but when people talk to him about the MVP, all he says is, that's fine. As long as it comes with a Super Bowl victory, then I'll take it. So the unselfish teams, the teams with great culture, and the teams that are playing for more than just themselves are the ones that are going to separate themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes that separation helps too when you get the Raiders and Giants as kind of your draw games, right? Like the Patriots, like the Patriots
Yeah,
got. I
yeah,
know the Colts have benefited for that too. And guys, like
yeah.
we've been defensive about the fact like that was the complaint early in the season. Well, the Colts haven't played anybody. So I'm sure the folks in Boston, as much as I feel sorry for them, probably are going through the same thing too here. But I agree with you, Alan. I mean, when you watch the Patriots play, you could see it. And I think they needed that stability of having a guy like Vrabel come in and a guy that really kind of knows what he's doing and obviously has strong ties to the franchise as well. And he's done a really nice job. But, what's interesting to me too with the AFC is that, we're kind of focusing on the teams that are at the top. That middle has sort of expanded because I think you have a clearly defined bottom where it's the Jets and the Raiders and Tennessee and Cleveland, and I think Cincinnati with their injury situation as well. And I think that has helped lift some other teams up. But, when I look at the 5-5s even, a team like Houston on the right day can beat you. We already talked about Kansas City being 5-5. I mean, the Ravens are 5-5. Normally speaking, this time of year, you look at 5-5 teams and you're like, yeah, whatever, run along. You know what I mean? But those are all difficult games, I think, playing those three teams right now, Zach, with what they put on the field.
Yeah, the NFL is a league of parity, like Alan said. The 5-5 teams are always capable of beating the 8-2s and the 9-1s and the top teams in the league because that's just how the league is built. So yeah, a team like Houston has a lot of flaws, right? Their offense is very up and down. Their offensive line is very inconsistent. They don't run the ball very well, but they have a top flight defense. They have a quarterback that can make plays. They have Nico Collins, one of the best receivers in the game. So if you catch them on a day where they are able to clean up some of their issues or look a little bit better than some of their issues, then yeah, they could beat anyone. Or a team like Jacksonville or even Kansas City, right, who are sitting there at 5-5 or 6-4, whatever it is. Those two teams are very like high and low. You can get them on a bad day and you can steamroll them to a victory. But if you catch them on a good day, they could beat the best of the best in football. And that's kind of what the middle of the road typically is in the NFL. We've seen that with the Colts the last couple of years, where the Colts being this 8-9 team, 9-8 team, but it's not like all their wins have been against bad teams and all their losses have been against good teams. There's typically a couple games where they lose to bad teams and a couple games where they beat the Chiefs in 2022 or whatever. They beat the Chiefs in the Jacoby Brissett season in 2019. That it's a league of parity. It's a league where even the worst teams are typically not that bad. I mean, heck, even looking at the Cleveland Browns, I don't want to go against that defense. That defense is one of the best in football. They're just saddled with a terrible offense on the other side. But, we saw the Green Bay Packers lose to them this year because that Browns defense is really good. So that's just kind of the way the league is. But yeah, the biggest thing right now is just you don't get many opportunities where in the playoffs, you don't have to go to Arrowhead, potentially, right? You don't have to go to Buffalo. You don't have to go to Baltimore, because playing at home in the playoffs is a big deal. There's a reason why a lot of the Super Bowl representatives are division winners. It's hard as a wild card team. Heck, there hasn't been a 7 seed, I don't think, yet to win their playoff game since they've introduced the 7 seed in there. The closest team was the Colts versus the Bills the first year they did it, and the Colts lost on the road to the Bills late in that game. So it's tough as a lower seed because you have to go to someone's home. And typically this is a top 2 to 3 team in your conference. Clearly they're going to be a good home team. If you win your home games, you're going to be a highly seeded team. So it's so vital to get those home games in the playoffs, regardless of who you're playing against. And to have a chance where you're not going to Arrowhead, for instance, in the playoffs is so valuable when, again, so much is dependent on those little things. At home, you get fewer pre-snap penalties. You get fewer turnovers because you're just, you're used to your home environment. It's not a given for sure, but it's typically goes that way in the NFL. So getting that home field advantage, especially against a team like the Chiefs in the playoffs, is almost everything. It's so vital.
Well, every single team in the league has the ability to win one game. Any team can rise up and win one game, but to stack those wins on top of another, that's something special. That's a group that's detail oriented. That's a group that's playing together. And it's a group that's probably healthier than most other teams too. The Colts have been able to have this success with, a lot of problems on defense, but knock on wood, everyone on offense has stayed fairly healthy. You've had a couple guys miss some games, but the point is, it's such a long season that if you can stack those wins early, then you give yourself that confidence to know that you know how to win so that you can chase some other goals. There's other attainable goals. Zach, you mentioned being able to play at home. Do you think the Colts would prefer to play at home where they can check at the line of scrimmage and change the play when everybody's quiet compared to going to where the Chiefs play? I can't call it Arrowhead because it's not Arrowhead.
Yeah, whatever
anymore.
it's called.
Geha Field, where you can't hear anybody and you got to use hand signals. So it's just one of those, you work your butt off to put yourself in a position. The Colts have put themselves in this position. Now they can taste it a little bit. They can smell it. So now you can go finish the job, instead of being one of those 5-5 teams where you're always trying to correct something that you screwed up the week before. You're always putting something on film that's going to be a problem the following week. It's you don't have cohesiveness on the team, because if you're 5-5, there's probably a little bit of finger pointing going on. But right now you got a perfect storm with this Colts team, because everybody gets along unless they can mask it very good. This looks like a team that loves playing with each other.
See, unlike me, Alan, you're a professional. I've been calling it Arrowhead all week. So when Alan goes to Chicago, he goes to the Willis Tower. He doesn't go to the Sears Tower. He's going to the Willis Tower.
Yeah.
I have one quick thing to add before we get out of this segment. Yeah. The last time the Colts have played a home game in the playoffs, what year do you guys think it was?
It had to be when
it was. Did they win a wild card round game in 14 against the Bengals?
2010 was the last time. 2010 was the last time. I just looked it up online. 2010 against the Jets was their last home playoff game.
Well, they would have won the South, though, in 14, so they would have had to have played a playoff game at home, right?
Really? It said 2010 here is what it said. Let me see.
Was that Andrew Luck?
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Luck. Okay, so 2014.
And the Chiefs comeback. Yeah, the Chiefs comeback was 2013.
So that year. Okay, so 2010, though, before that. So in the last, 15 years or whatever, they've had two home playoff games. Yeah. 2 home playoff games then. Yeah. Okay, so that site, I got a Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, I used to always mess up, because even when I did the Notre Dame broadcast, I would say Oliver Luck, because I played with Andrew Luck's dad at the Oilers. He was like a second or third string quarterback. But then broadcasting his son playing at Stanford, and I used to screw it up all the time. Say Oliver Luck. I say Ollie Luck.
2 home playoff games in the last 15 years, though, for the Colts. In the first time, and haven't had one since 2014. Then, so it's time to get a home playoff game. Win a couple games on the stretch here. Get at home in the playoffs. Give your fans something to get excited about. Play in front of. It's so prideful to play in front of your home fans in the playoffs. Bring that pride back to Indy. Let's do it.
And that was a given for so many years here in this town. Like, hey, the home play, at least one home playoff game. You're usually thinking that you could get 2 home playoff games out of it. So I agree. It would be nice to see a boost for the pass rush. And it's too bad Jake isn't here, because a healthy Colts linebacker is here to save the day, you guys. We're going to talk about under and overreactions when we come back next on the Colts Squad Show. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right, new customers, FanDuel.com, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we're back on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for making us a part of your Hump Day Wednesday alongside Alan Pink and Zach Hicks. I'm Derek Schultz. So it's overreaction and underreaction time. I feel like last week we might have started with a couple of underreactions. So let's go with an over. And, I mentioned this, Jake, who's not here tonight and will be back with us on Sunday's show. He was banging that drum all spring and all summer. Colts are doing the wrong thing at linebacker. Colts are doing the wrong thing at linebacker. They're relying too much on Carlisle here. Well, Jalen Carlisle is back. And my overreaction is Jalen Carlisle is here to save the day not because I don't think Jalen Carlisle can be a good player. It's just Zach, here's a guy that missed the entire spring, a good chunk of the summer, and then missed the season to this point. Look, it's just going to take some time for him to ramp up. And plus, Jermaine Pratt's been pretty good playing alongside Zaire Franklin.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. So I'm not the punk on this or the jerk on this, because I had someone earlier say, like, Zach, why are you not talking big enough about the Carlisle's return? It's kind of to me like when Jalen Jones came off IR and everyone was like, oh, the savior of the quarterback room. And he started a little bit in that first game against the Steelers because there were just no other options. And then when Gardner comes in, he's relegated to 4 defensive snaps behind Mekhi Blackman because Lou Anarumo likes Blackman more than Jalen Jones. And at this point, like, Carlisle, even if he were 100% healthy and completely ramped up, I don't think he's playing over Jermaine Pratt on base downs. And then so you get to like what his role could be, and it's like maybe a little bit on passing downs, but Lou Anarumo likes to play a lot of dime. 3 safeties, 3 corners, 4 corners, 2 safeties, and you're not going to have many linebackers out there. So at best, if or when Carlisle is activated, I think it'll be like a 4 to 5 defensive snaps a game at best for him. I don't think we're going to see much of him out there on defense. So it's nice to have the depth. It's nice to have a player that the Colts did think highly of in the offseason to have him back. You can never downplay that because injuries happen in this league, but him being like the savior or anything like that, I don't think he's going to play enough for that. Same with Jalen Jones, like these guys were kind of falling out of favor before their injuries. Carlisle was down to like 3rd team linebacker in camp at some points behind Austin Ajaki, who's in his potential role right now. So we'll see. We'll see how much he gets out there, but I'm with you, Derek. I think it's kind of an overreaction that he's going to change much about this defense going forward.
Well, I wouldn't call it an overreaction, but I think the point is it's great to have depth in the NFL, where usually what you have is a starter who's getting too much money and the backup is an unrestricted free agent who's unsigned or undrafted. And so it's, you pay one guy $1 million, the other guy you're paying $100,000, so you try to get as many games out of that $1 million player as you can. I think number one, the point is having depth. Number two, having depth where someone understands the system so that the transition, if they have to come in, won't be as bad. It's another thing to pull a guy off the street and bring into your system. The year, my final year in the league, I remember, I guess it was 1993, I got cut by the Packers. And I still stayed in shape and everything. But it was like 2 weeks left in the season. The Steelers actually called me to come in and do a visit. And I was all excited about it. You think I was ready to play? I wasn't ready to play. And I don't know what's happening with this. I think I look better sideways. So I guess I'll just go this way. I think I look better sideways, but that's technology.
We can all do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Carlisle, even if he was fully healthy, I don't know how much he'd factor in with Jermaine Pratt involved now, while Allen tries to get himself back on the ground level here. Yeah, while he's playing with it. But yeah, I think Carlisle is going to factor in. But I think, again, I think I used this as my underreaction last week or 2 weeks ago as well. But the return of Mooney Ward, I think we're underreacting to. The fact that somebody even wanted me to put Mooney Ward's return in the same category as Jalen Carlisle tells me that we're underreacting to how important this return of Mooney Ward is. Mooney Ward was playing at an all-pro level to start the season. He was playing at a higher level than Sauce Gardner was playing at this season. So now when you have both of those guys out there, like, I think we're underselling how good this defense can be. In a lot of the analytics nerds out there, I say nerds lovingly because I love me some analytics guys out there, have been putting all out there all day long and all week long. The Chiefs are this fantastic passing offense against zone coverage, but against man coverage, they're a bottom 10 passing offense, a bottom 10 offense overall against man. What do you think Lou Anarumo is going to do with Kenny Moore, Mooney Ward, and with Sauce Gardner on the outside? he's going to play a lot of man coverage. He's going to play a lot of man coverage the rest of the way, especially with DeForest Buckner out of the lineup. They have to generate more pressure. They're going to bring more 5-6 man rushes and stack that man coverage on the back end in order to generate pressure and make quarterbacks hold the ball a little bit. So Mooney Ward is the most valuable player on this Colts defense throughout this season. He has been the best Colts defender, more so than DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner's been awesome this year, but Mooney Ward has been more valuable than him, especially now when you add that protection on the other side of Sauce Gardner. So I really think we're underreacting to how vital of a return this is. Like, this is a return that could turn this defense into a championship caliber defense, even without DeForest Buckner, because the coverage could be so special. I mean, Ward was giving up nothing in coverage to start this season. I think it's going to be a really good pass defense going forward, even without Buckner being that quick pass rush winner up front.
I'm excited about it, and forgive me for the technical difficulties. I hope it doesn't happen again. But, one of the things I always say is technology is a wonderful thing when it works. I wish I could on cue be able to make the screen go like that again. But, we talk about complementary football, but there's also complementary defense. And complementary defense just is what you were talking about, Zach, is can the, front seven get enough pressure on the quarterback so that we don't have to cover these guys as long on the back end. But if my guys on the back end, can lock down on these guys, it might be 3 seconds, but we're going to eventually arrive at the quarterback. So when those two are in concert, it becomes a hell of a defense. And I got to tell you, it's exciting as hell to have the combination and back of Charvarius Ward and would y'all call him Mooney?
Yeah, he goes by Mooney. Obviously, his name is Charvarius, so I just try to say Mooney because I just
rolls off the tongue easier.
Yeah. Well, I also just go by what players want, like Shaquille Leonard years ago. Everyone still called him Darius. I went by Shaquille. It's not like the biggest deal, but everyone in Colts facility calls him Mooney. Yeah. And honestly, I prefer Mooney's a cooler name. Honestly, Mooney's a great name for him. So we'll go with that.
Yeah. And I guess the point is you got two guys back there that are lockdown corners. And it does give the Colts the ability to send 5 sometimes, to send 6. So that's how I guess you compensate for DeForest Buckner not being here. Sometimes you send 6 because you're going to be pretty comfortable with the 2 guys you have on the other team's elite receivers. Now, I guess the question is, can either Pratt or Zaire Franklin cover that tight end?
Yeah, well, you don't even need – you go out in dime coverage, right? Say this is like a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Go out there in dime, have one linebacker on the field, and he's mugging that A-gap. You're running press man coverage. You're bringing 5 to 6 guys. And with that press man, you're making it so receivers can't get open in the 2 seconds that they have to get open against the blitz. Because when you're a corner, how do you play against the blitz? You play the sticks, you play press, you get on them, because that ball has to be out in 2 seconds. So you have that internal clock, 2.5 seconds, and you're like, that ball has to be out by this point because you bring in that blitz, So I think there are so many good things you can do with this. I mean, gosh, if I was a defensive coordinator, just having guys like this opens up so much of my world, like I can bracket Kelsey with 2 defenders up in the middle. I can bracket, because Kenny Moore is another one that Kenny Moore is in there as well. Like I can bracket whoever the other guy is and still bring 5 because I'm fine with Sauce and Mooney on islands. Like these guys are proven veterans out there. So man, for Lou Anarumo from early in the season, you're starting Mekhi Blackman, Xavier Howard, Jonathan Edwards. Now you're going out there with Sauce Gardner and Mooney Ward. Like, I still think we're underreacted to this. I mean, Lou Anarumo is probably doing fist pumps in the office, getting ready for every game going forward.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this, that for the people that listen to you every day, they got to be scholars in football. I'll tell you, the first time you impressed me was when Anthony Richardson got hurt, and you told me it was scat protection. I was like, oh damn, he knows what scat protection is. You've made this experience great because both you and Jake have such immense knowledge. I just know if people listen to y'all every day, they can go and talk football with anybody. I play and I don't know half the stuff
I also have random terms for that. I call tight ends lined up a little in the backfield the sniffer tight ends, and I realize that's not a common thing across all of football terminology. Yeah. But from where I learned it from Big 12 playbooks, that's kind of what they're called. But I appreciate that, Alan.
All right.
I'll make sure that Jake clips that, Alan, what you just said, because he's the one that does all the clips and socials, and he'll just play that for Locked On Colts and put that on the TikTok and the Instagram and all that. You saying that exactly. Yeah. A lot of names and faces are the same. So why do the Chiefs look different this season? We'll talk about that when we take our first look at KC next when the Colts Squad Show returns. And welcome back. Locked On Colts, Final Time Squad Show on this Wednesday edition alongside former NFLer and Notre Dame legend Alan Pinkett, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I'm Derek Schultz. So, I didn't want to turn this into Locked On Chiefs. I know that we spent a lot of time, and you should go over your next listen should be Locked On Chiefs. Those guys do a great job. But we talked a lot about them in the first segment, right? But from what I've seen this year, besides some close game variants not going their way, their offense just feels almost like a little bit stale. I mean, we talk about how fast the NFL moves and nothing stays the same, right? And the Chiefs, seemingly are doing a lot of the same things that they've been doing, and just unlike in previous years are not working. But Zach, that is a very layman and probably simplistic way to put it. I'm sure you've dove even deeper into the Chiefs. Why hasn't it clicked for them, especially offensively this year consistently?
Yeah, I'm going to try not to lose people here with going back in football terminology and knowledge, but football is a game of ebbs and flows, and offenses get ahead at some point, defenses get ahead at other points, and so much of how you win in football is finding that new edge or that new trend in the NFL and adapting to it and changing what you do. So we go back to the early 2010s, the Seattle cover three was taking the league by storm, bringing that safety down in the box, having that Cam Chancellor, that physical big body guy. And teams that like to run in the early 2000s were running into just walls over and over again. And they had these top tier press corners on the outside killing them. So that the new NFL meta became these RPOs, a lot of RPOs. We're going to sell run and we're going to throw the ball out quick. So how did the NFL defenses respond to that? Too high safety looks, a lot of man match type of stuff. And now the RPO game is just dying across the league. Shane Steichen doesn't call RPOs that much anymore. And he was like one of the forefront fathers of RPOs back in the day. And now we're seeing the NFL offenses are moving towards more under center, big, heavy football. Now the defenses are back in too high. We're going back under center. We're running the football under 12 and 13 personnel. We're bringing 12 and 13 personnel to get teams into base defense again, and then we're attacking vertical. We're attacking down the field. Or you can attack like the Colts, where we have Tyler Warren selling run block, leaking out into the flats, giving him those run after catch opportunities. So I'm saying all this to say the Chiefs are a little bit behind the curve right now with how they are attacking the modern defense. They throw a lot of RPOs out there. They're actually good at getting 12 and 13 personnel on the field, but they do it out of the gun, and they do it without a true run threat. And so they're not really taking advantage of the true way to attack the modern NFL defense. So we're seeing them kind of run a perfect offense to attack the old cover three and the old Seattle cover three, but nobody really runs that anymore. So when you get these defensive coordinators like Lou Anarumo, Brian Flores, Vic Fangio, their defenses are designed to stop what the Chiefs have been doing the last 5-6 years, and they're still kind of just doing it over and over again. Now, they can still get points on the board. This has been their most effective offensive season since Mahomes' MVP season, because Pat Mahomes is a very good quarterback, because they have Rashee Rice, because they have Travis Kelce, who never ages somehow, because they have solid offensive linemen up front, at least at a couple of those positions. So they're not this talentless offense. They're still a top 10 offense, in terms of EPA per play and how they play this year. But they are a little bit behind the times in how they attack. They need to lean more into under center and play action stuff, and they're just not doing it. They're doing too much RPO and too much shotgun stuff. And teams that play man coverage are able to take advantage of that. Teams that play these two high shells with matching concepts are taking advantage of that. So yeah, they're vulnerable on offense, but at the end of the day, it's still Pat Mahomes. It's still Andy Reid. Even if they're playing a little bit archaic on that side of the ball, it only takes one miscontain against Pat Mahomes, and he can roll out of the pocket and throw it across his body for a 60-yard gain and get right down there in the red zone. So you have to be on top of your game, be on your P's and Q's, and be ready to play. But they are kind of running an offense that's a little bit easy to exploit schematically for defenses right now.
Yeah, ever since the Chargers beat them and the Chargers showed a model in the first game of the year of how to beat the Chiefs have not come up with an answer yet to stop that. And like I say, when you put it on film, you better get it corrected because you're going to continue to see it week in and week out. And I guess the other thing the Chiefs have suffered from, what some prognosticators will say is a lack of a running game. Well, it looks like Pacheco is coming back this week, so they can't use that as an excuse. But you are right, Zach, in terms of their approach is archaic. As smart as Andy Reid is and as innovative he is, I do see where being under center benefits you a lot more. You see Philly, their quarterback under center a lot more. And I tell you what that does is it does help the running game because now you've got the running back coming downhill at the line of scrimmage, which, makes the defense have to declare a lot faster instead of in an RPO where they've got time to see what the hell you're going to do and then move to your spot. And it's always been one of those cat chasing the mouse things. The offensive line got real big, and so the defensive line in turn, they were small. They had to get bigger, and then the linebackers got bigger, and then the offense spread everybody out, and then it's like, okay, well, we can't have these 250-pound linebackers out here spread out to cover all this wide field. Then the linebackers became 220, 210. And then here comes the NFL again, the Philadelphia Eagles with a line that averages 320, and they just run the ball. They line up in the eye and they run it. So you are right. It's always the cat chasing the mouse type of thing. And Kansas City has not come up with the answers since game one, beginning of the year. They've got great talent. They're going to make plays, but over the course of a game, the NFL teams have broken that code.
Yeah, and I will say, when we're looking at this Chiefs offense with the Colts defense, Colts are going to come out here and play a lot of man coverage in this game. And when they don't play man coverage, they're going to do a lot of drop 8 stuff so they can get into those short passing windows to suffocate the RPOs. We'll see some inverted Tampa 2, of course, as well. That's what Lou likes to run against the RPO stuff. But I will say the most important stat to keep track of on Sunday, and I think will be one of the most indicative stats of if the Colts defense is able to contain this Chiefs offense, will be Mahomes' scramble yards. Jokes, you were right on top of that in the comment section there. Will be Mahomes' scramble yards. Early in the season, the Chiefs were able to move the ball a lot against man coverage with Mahomes scrambling and running. In the last couple weeks, his scrambles have dropped really, really low. He's not really running the football as much these last couple weeks, and the Chiefs offense has suffered as a result. So if the Colts can bring this pressure and get Mahomes on the ground or get the ball out of his hands when they attack on man coverage on the back end, then the Colts are going to have a ton of success on defense and have a chance to hold this Chiefs offense under 20 points. But if Mahomes is able to break that contain, break through those rush lanes, get out the back of the pocket and scramble for first downs, it could be a long day for the Colts because that's how special of a quarterback he is. He can turn, 6-man pressures against 5-man protection into a 30-yard run because he is just that talented of a quarterback. So they have to get him on the ground. They have to contain him to the pocket, trust your man coverage on the back end. And if you get a shot to touch the quarterback, make sure he stays where he is. Do not let him out of that pocket. It frustrates me to no end when I see these guys running full speed and whiffing on quarterbacks. And I'm like, throttle down and just get a hit on him. I don't care if it's going to be in 2 seconds versus 2.1 seconds. Get the hit on 2.1 seconds because you're going to have the press coverage on the back end. So the big thing is just getting Mahomes on the ground, or at least just getting that ball out of his hands, because if he's scrambling against your man coverage, I mean, he was the Chiefs' leading rusher for half the season this year because of his scramble yardage. That's going to be a vital stat for the Colts this weekend.
What about defensively, Zach, too? Just as far as they are on that side of the ball, because I saw number 4 scoring defense, and their point differential indicates they'd be a lot better than 5-5. Their point differential is better than 26 other teams in the league.
Yeah, no, they're a team that they kill the games they win, they kill the team they play. The games they lose by 1 score. That's usually indicative of a pretty good football team that's on the bad side of luck. Now, they were on the good side of luck last year, so Lady Luck comes for us all. She's the cruelest mistress out there. But when it comes to this Chiefs defense, at the end of the day, they're coached by a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator in Spagnuolo. They have an A+ player on the interior in Chris Jones. Really, the biggest point of exploitability for them is their linebackers, making sure that you are getting the linebackers' eyes where you want them to be, and making sure that, like, hey, if we're play faking to the left, we want those linebackers' eyes going to the left. We want them rolling with that play. And then if we're going to sneak Ward on the backside, make sure they're not accounting for him. They're not tagging him in their man coverage on the back end. And that's where they've been exploitable a lot this season. Tight ends have been very successful against them. But at the end of the day, Spagnuolo is a really good defensive coach. When you get into third down situations, 3rd and 7+, they're going to disguise what they do. They're going to bring extra pressure. They're going to be very unique. And, Spagnuolo, I think, even with some of his issues this year, he is probably one of the best individual game planners in the league on the defensive side of the ball. So if this is one of those games where, again, this is a must-win game for them coming back home, I'm sure he's got a plan in place to make things uncomfortable for Daniel Jones. The key for the Colts, exploit their weaknesses at the linebacker position, get the ball to Tyler Warren and their playmakers to create after the catch, and don't turn the football over. That's the most important thing. Don't turn the football over. If you give Pat Mahomes short field against your defense, it's going to make you pay. So play a ball control game, get into 3rd and short situations where you have that run pass option of we can go under center, we can go in the pistol, there's a threat of Jonathan Taylor, and then make sure you're leaking Warren out as much as possible, because that's going to be the hard thing for them to tag as a defense.
Well, and just to follow up, look, they're well coached. Spags is a hell of a defensive coach. Andy Reid is one great offensive coach. They play hard, because they do care. They're going to come after you. But I just got to think at some point, when they've lost 5 this soon in the season, do you get in that mental rep that says, here we go again? Yeah, they're still trying hard, and I compliment them because they're trying to win every game. But then sometimes, to the mental part of that game where it's like, have they started accepting the fact that they don't have that championship DNA, that they're not going to win every game like they did last year? Were they just lucky last year? And should this have happened last year because they won so many, close games? Well, I guess the point is it's not for the Colts to worry about. The Colts, if they can just handle their business, let the Chiefs figure out their own damn problems. But the Colts can make it a problem for the Chiefs by the way they play, because they're so, systematic in what they do. They're so pinpoint accurate in how they run their offense, and they've just gotten better on defense. So, if the Colts can make it about how they play the game instead of whatever's ailing the Chiefs, then they should be fine.
Yeah, I always go back to this one story with just NFL history. It was one of my favorites when I was a kid, where it's, the Joe Montana story, right? Where he goes to the huddle and he points out, was it John Candy in the crowd?
Yeah, it was.
I believe is what it was. Yeah, he points out John Candy because he's cool Joe Montana, right? Yeah. But you know what leads to that confidence is consistent success. You never feel like you're out. It leads to the confidence of the 90-yard touchdown drive, the 80-yard touchdown drive, the going to multiple Super Bowls. So a team like the Chiefs, until they have that 8th loss on there, those guys in that locker room know, like, we've been to Super Bowls. We've won 10 straight before. We won, whatever straight that we need to win to get to Super Bowls. So a thing for me with them is they're never out until they're officially out. Until that percentage point says they have a 0% chance of making the playoffs, I'm not counting the Kansas City Chiefs out. And I think they think that internally as well. Even if there was a 1% chance and they needed to win 30 straight games to do it, they feel like they can because they have in the past. They have done the improbable before. They've gone to multiple Super Bowls. They've won Super Bowls. So this is a team that you can never count out. The advanced stats are very, very good on them, especially at home. They've got back-to-back losses to playoff teams on the road, coming back home. They're going to be ready to go. They're going to be ready to win this game. Colts need to be as desperate and as physical as possible. And again, at the end of the day, no turnovers. Please bring the turnovers down. I know it's a road environment against a tough team. Do not give them freebies. Play disciplined football. I don't know if there's any team in the league that can beat the Colts if the Colts don't beat themselves first. You know, all their losses this year, all their close games have been when they turn the ball over, when they've had a ton of penalties. That's not a recipe for success for any team, but for the Colts, they have so much talent on both sides of the ball that the only way you can give these teams chances to beat you is if you're beating yourself first. So play a good, clean football game, get out of here with a win, and make sure you don't have to face the Chiefs the rest of the way because, again, you can't count them out until they're officially out.
And if you're looking for extra motivation, the Chiefs at 5-5 are a 3.5-point favorite over the 8-2 Colts.
There we go. There we go. Bulletin board material.
All you got to do is drive that wooden stake and that vampire a little bit deeper. We'll see if they can do it on Sunday. Thanks for joining us here on the Colts Squad Show. Lock us in for your midweek show every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. But don't forget, we are your place for live game recaps following each and every Colts game this season. We'll be back with you Sunday following Colts Chiefs to recap either a statement win or a missed opportunity loss. That'll be shortly after the game goes final right here on the Locked On Colts Network. But until then, keep it locked on Zach and Jake, who will be back with us on Sunday every day on Locked On Colts. Be sure to follow at Locked On Colts on socials and check out our other great content on YouTube and TikTok. And we'll see you next time right here on the Squad Show.